On your Monday episode of Locked On Raptors, the shorthanded Raptors are leaving everything they've got on the floor. They just don't have much right now.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Monday, November the 18th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky at woodleyshawn.bsky.social. They'll shorten the handles one day. You can also find me over on Instagram at Locked On Raptors. You can also join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server as well. Link in the description of the podcast. Great place to come hang out, talk ball all the live long day. And of course, please go subscribe to the Locked On Raptors daily newsletter. Original writing from me 5 times a week. You get Katie Heindel 4 times a week with a national perspective story, fantasy tips from Josh Lloyd, basketball poetries, Michael Shearer once a week, breaking it down from an X's and O's perspective as well. And it's all free. So please go and subscribe to the Locked On Raptors newsletter. Link in the description of the podcast. It helps me out big time. Thank you so much for doing it. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, where you can start the season with a big return. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get $150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we'll get started here on your Monday edition of the show talking about a pair of narrow Raptors losses over the weekend, an NBA Cup loss to the Detroit Pistons that may spell the end of the Raptors' hopes of advancing in the NBA Cup. And then Saturday, man, in Boston, a game I really wanted. I don't know if I wanted the Raptors to win a game this much since like the championship season, maybe the following year, the title defense season. Really wanted this one for the Raptors. They deserved it. I thought they played their asses off. We'll get into what they did. Lots of stuff going right for the Raptors in that game against Boston. Just didn't have enough. And that is the prevailing theme from this weekend, is they are leaving it all on the floor. They're doing everything they can to scrape by results without Scottie Barnes, without Immanuel Quickley, without Kelly Olynyk, without Bruce Brown, without Jacoby Walter, on down the line. It's just when you are without your top end talent, it's very hard to win in a very talented NBA. The Pistons are no slouches anymore. We will get into that game. We'll get into the Boston game. We're going to get into the defense as well, which has made some serious strides of late and, is kind of coming into form. We've got the good, the bad, and the coming up later as well. But let's get into the idea of the Raptors leaving it all out there this weekend. I don't think you can really look at what happened against the Pistons and the Celtics and say the Raptors kind of hurt themselves with what they were doing. They just kind of ran short on energy, on talent, on shot making, but they put themselves in the position to go and get results against both Detroit and Boston. The Pistons game on Friday, not the prettiest offensive effort you'll ever see. Of course, I do think we're seeing just the limits of, hey, Gradey Dick, go be everything for us on offense. He's exhausted right now. It's really difficult. You get that beautiful look for him late in that game. They're up, they're down 2. They get a beautiful kick to the corner from RJ Barrett, suspended in air, kicking a dime to the corner to a wide open Gradey Dick. You take that look in crunch time 100 times out of 100, and Gradey Dick's probably going to hit it 48 times out of 100. He's a very good three-point shooter on wide open corner threes. That's his bag. It just didn't go down. You can see the legs with him are just not quite there. He's being asked to do so much to make this offense functional. The amount of ground he has to cover on the offensive end just to insert enough motion and gravity into the Raptors system. It's an immense ask right now. And I'm not surprised that you get those 2 looks for Gradey at the end of the game. Again, that wide open corner 3, and then you get a 3 for him. It's a pull-up 3 on that last possession. Maybe you want something a little bit better than that, a little bit cleaner, but I don't think anyone's upset about Gradey Dick taking a 3 from above the break to try and tie a game late down the stretch. Or was it it was to tie the game at that point. They were down 3. Like, you live with those looks. It sucks that those looks are not going down. It sucks the Raptors keep on coming up short in these very close games against good or not good teams, whoever they're up against. It's just the reality of not having your 2 best offensive creators and the guys you do have being asked to be your entire world. It's very difficult for that to happen. And yet we're seeing some really good stuff from those guys. Jakob Poeltl, man, let's take a second. Talking about a dude leaving it all out there. An incredible weekend from Poeltl. 25 points on 12 of 20, 18 boards, 3 assists, 3 blocks in that game against the Pistons on Friday. And then against the Celtics, absolutely masterful stuff from push shot Jesus, Jakob Poeltl. 35 points, 12 boards, 16 of 19 from the field. And we'll get into a little bit later on, kind of maybe offering a blueprint of how you take down the Celtics and their ruthless math ball. Just score all of the points at the rim. That's really effective. That's good math, baby. And Jakob Poeltl, in concert with RJ Barrett, who I thought also had a nice bounce back weekend. The efficiency's still not there. 6 of 18 in that game on Friday against Detroit. 10 of 27 against the Boston Celtics. Like, the scoring efficiency is going to be troubled until Scottie Barnes and Immanuel Quickley are back, and he's more in his sort of usual role, not being asked to be everything, but he's also doing everything he can to shepherd this offense right now. His careful, probing pick and roll play, we'll get into that a little bit later on in the show as well, been super duper impressive. And I think there is sort of a merging of RJ Barrett playmaker and RJ Barrett off-ball finisher into this sort of complete package once this team is healthy that's going to leave the team better off as a result. Again, we'll dive into more of that a little bit later on. But yeah, the Raptors they're 2-12, right? Like, there's only so much solace you can take in that. They're 2-12. They keep dropping these games. I don't think they did anything to shoot themselves in the foot, I suppose. In particular, that game against Boston. I thought they played a fantastic game against the Celtics. I think their defense, we're going to talk about the defense coming up, was as connected as we've seen it. I think, on that last possession, the last 2-minute report came out yesterday. Jason Tatum on the buzzer-beating 3 in overtime. He traveled. Yes, there was a foul by Davion Mitchell on Jaylen Brown 2 seconds before that. We don't got to worry about that. But, officiating stuff, as it turns out, does come out in the wash. It's not anything to get too upset about. But, yeah, like the Jason Tatum, like, they defended that possession well. They forced Jason Tatum into a really dumb shot. It happened to go down. Credit to him, I guess. But, like, I think you defend that possession the same way 100 times and you're going to get the result you want most of the time. It's just the way things have gone for this team. They can't afford bad luck. They can't afford those little margins to go away. It's tricky. But yeah, man, I think overall we're seeing the guys who can kind of drive the bus here. And there's like 4 of them right now. It's Ochai Agbaji, Jakob Poeltl, Gradey Dick, RJ Barrett, the guys who make functional basketball possible for this team right now. Davion Mitchell, to an extent, his defense has been very good. The offense, not so much, but he's out there. He's the starter by default. That lineup is ticking along at about an even clip, a little bit above, a little bit below, depending on the game. That's been very impressive. They're doing a damn good job of just making the most of a pretty offense light starting 5. They're making it happen. Like, it's again, there's only so much you can do when you're this short on talent compared to the teams you're playing. Even the Pistons are not any great shakes, but like, they're pretty healthy. And Cade Cunningham's a real creator, and Jaden Ivey can go make some stuff happen for you. And Marcus Sasser comes in off the bench and has more bench juice than any Toronto Raptors guard has, period. Like, there's only so much you can do to overcome the talent disadvantage they're at right now with the injuries they're facing. And I think everything they are doing is basically what you want. They are remaining fun. They are remaining sprightly and spunky and annoying and pest-like and try hardy. Like, that they are checking all the boxes for what you want from a team that's 2-12, which is a crazy sentence to say, but it's the reality of where they're at. They're squeezing every little last bit of juice they have. It's just like one of those oranges that's kind of dried up and there's not a whole lot of juice left to squeeze. You're just like, can I get something out of here? I got to make my marinade for my food. Like, it just squeeze a little bit more juice. There's just not a lot right now. And there will be more. It's going to come around and all these guys are going to be better for this. But yeah, it's tough, man. That Boston game, man, really, really wanted it. Just like wanted it for so many reasons. The sort of philosophical protecting of the soul of basketball reasons with the Celtics playing their garbage, ruthless math ball, which is awful to watch, terrible to watch. The Raptors play a way more aesthetically pleasing style despite being much worse at basketball. And frankly, I think that's something you can be all right with if you're a Raptors fan. Yeah, you're not the Celtics, but you haven't sold your souls to the devil to play ruthless math ball like Boston has. And there's some sort of solace to be found in that for sure. Look, it's just going to be this way. They're going to pick up some wins at some point. If they keep on playing this way, if they keep on being this connected, if the defense continues to make the strides that we're going to talk about in a second here, like there are wins to be had. The Pacers tonight, right? Like the Pacers are no great shakes right now. They're 6-7. They are potentially gettable. Like if the Raptors do what they did against Boston on Saturday, tonight against Indy, there's a win to be had there. They're working with razor thin margins right now. And it's a lot to ask of them to pull it out. You need Gradey Dick to be on and efficient. Sometimes that's not going to happen for a 20-year-old who's being asked to do everything. Sometimes Jakob Poeltl's not going to go 16 of 19 from 2. In fact, most of the time he's not. You need these Herculean efforts from guys who are laying it all on the line. There's just behind those guys, it's a lot of Chris Boucher kind of flailing around, and it's a lot of Jamal Shed playing nice defense, but fouling a lot and not offering a ton of the offensive end. It's just, there's not a whole lot of backstop for the guys who are really making things possible for the Raptors here. It's just tough, man. We're going to come back on the other side. We're going to get into the defensive progress this team is making because they're taking steps, and that's all you can really ask for. They're no ace defense team, right? They're not the freaking Wolves, but they're coming around and they're not embarrassingly bad, which is great. We're going to get into why that is and how they can keep on building on it coming up in just one sec. Today's show is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we're all trying to do our best and make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, it's not very easy to do that. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself and perhaps even your therapist. A therapist can help you talk through the things that are weighing you down, that are giving you trouble, that are keeping you up at night, and make it so you can come up with coping mechanisms and ways to deal with it, to make yourself happy, to achieve your goals, to do all of the things that we all want to do. We just want to live a happy life and feel like we're bettering ourselves, and therapy can help you with that. I know a lot of people who have very much benefited from therapy. Maybe you can as well. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Back at it here, talking about an 0-2 weekend for your 2-12 Toronto Raptors. And just a heads up, we got lots of fun stuff on tap for this week. We'll talk Raptors Pacers tomorrow. I've got Trill Bro Dude from You Know Ball, one of my favorite NBA podcasts right now, coming up on Thursday to talk about the plight of the Sixers and the Raptors at the bottom of the Eastern Conference standings. All kinds of stuff on tap for you this week, so stay tuned for that. But the defense, they're making strides. A couple of pretty decent defensive efforts from the Raptors over the weekend. You know, the numbers weren't necessarily favorable in that Celtics game, but I think just the eye test, the way they were connected, some of the playmaking that we saw, really impressive from the Raptors. And we're seeing them round into form just a little bit. And by saying, when I say round into form, I don't mean round into top 10 defensive form where they're using their defense as a crutch to keep themselves propped up in these games. No. That's not it. What they're doing is giving themselves a chance by playing passable defense, by making that jump from total disaster, bottom of the league, no defense zone to, okay, like, yeah, they're not amazing, but they're reasonable, run-of-the-mill bad with flourishes of looking kind of all right. Very faint praise, obviously, but like this is the step you got to make, right? You're taking baby steps. You don't go from bottom of the league in defense to top of the league overnight. It's a long, arduous journey, and it takes a lot of those baby steps to incrementally get you there. And we're seeing the first of those baby steps right now. They're still 28th in defense in terms of overall points allowed per 100 possessions. But if you take out just the opener against the Cleveland Cavaliers, it moves them up to 22nd. That one game is still tanking their numbers big time. And yeah, you can't, it's one of the games they've played. It counts to the sample, but you're seeing the progress made since that game. They're number 13 in defense over their last 5 games. That's nice. That's encouraging. It's a small sample, but again, incremental baby steps. And look, maybe they're getting some favorable shooting luck over the last 5 games. Teams have the lowest effective field goal percentage in the NBA against the Raptors, and certainly that's luck, but some of it's also what the Raptors are doing, and they're kind of honing their craft a little bit more on the defensive end than they were at the start of the year. Some other numbers: their half-court defense, when you take out with that Cavs game in the sample, they're 25th in half-court defense. You take that game out, the rest of the 13 games are 21st. Again, run-of-the-mill bad, sort of approaching middle of the pack. That's where you want to be if you're trying to build up this defense from where it was last year, which was basically non-existent. My hope was that they could do that this season, and it does seem like they are kind of getting towards that, and they're doing it without their second best defender in Scottie Barnes, maybe their best defender, all told. That's like, it's encouraging. It's nice steps forward. What's really killing them right now is second chances. They're getting absolutely hammered on the defensive glass. They are 25th in the league in defensive rebounding percentage. Not what you want. The first shot defense has been all right. It's been coming along, but they keep on giving up those putbacks. They're a really small team, right? Without Jakob Poeltl on the floor, and we'll talk about Bruno Fernando coming up later, like there's just not a lot of size to go and bang and grab rebounds against the trees of other teams. It's just a difficult situation right now. And a lot of the time, I think our pal Swar Lasers Assad on Raptors Blue Sky earlier this week kind of pointed out, like, Poeltl, when he has to jump out of position to try to block a shot or protect the rim, there's just no one around who can come in and swoop up and grab those defensive boards that Jak is creating with those contests, and it's hurting them big time, right? Like, that's where Scottie Barnes is so valuable. A, as a guy who can offer some extra rim protection so Jak doesn't have to do everything there, and B, as a guy who's a damn good defensive rebounder who can clean up the messes when Jak has to step out of position and is not in prime rebounding spots. And they just don't have that with RJ Barrett being the second biggest guy on the floor. I guess Gradey Dick is the second tallest guy on the floor in their starting lineup. Like, yeah, that's going to hurt you rebounding wise. They're still great on the offensive end. They are crashing the offensive glass like maniacs. That's great. They're like the sixth best rebounding team on the whole in the league because they're number one in offensive rebounding by a lot. And that's helping them with the possession battle and all of that. It's helping prop their offense up, but their defense is struggling right now just because they can't collect defensive boards. And you would hope that Scottie coming back, even Kelly Olynyk, who's not a very good rebounder, but he's like tall, might help with that as well. They are right now number 8 in suppressing opponent threes. That's great, especially after the sample is now clouded by 61 threes attempted by the Celtics on Saturday. They're doing a good job with that. I think their shot chart, they're giving up a lot of stuff at the rim. They're giving up a high percentage at the rim, but they're not getting bludgeoned by threes created out of their over aggressiveness, right? This was the Nick Nurse problem where they were super aggressive on defense, sent 2 to the ball, ended up in the rotation game, and a lot of the time they were just getting burned by role players standing in the corner, cashing wide open triples. That's not happening right now. They're doing a pretty good job of suppressing threes all over the place, and you're seeing some like legitimately very good defensive performances from guys. Davion Mitchell has been very good on defense. He's been as good on defense as he has been bad on offense. Unlike the last couple seasons in Sacramento, he's actually making the lineups he's in good at defense. He leads the team in defensive on-off right now. They're 7.2 points per 100 better with Davion Mitchell on the floor. He still has his issue as an off-ball guy for sure, but on the ball, he's been nasty. He's been really annoying. He did a great job making Cade Cunningham's life miserable on Friday, for example. And he's been very emblematic of this sort of scheme the Raptors are trying to run with, which is that super aggressive. We are staying with you at the point of attack. We're fighting over screens every single time, kind of regardless of, who's got the ball in their hands. And that leads me to the next point here, which is schematically, I think the hammering over and over of the same principles is starting to have an effect on the way this team is affecting opposing offenses, right? On Friday, I was kind of perplexed sitting there watching, from the gondola, Raptors Pistons, watching why is Davion Mitchell fighting over every single screen on Cade Cunningham? Like, he's a fine shooter, but he's not someone with like a nasty pull-up threat that you're totally freaking out about. Is it not better to just kind of go under? Same happened with Ron Holland, like a 20% three-point shooter, maybe worse. Can't shoot at all. But the Raptors were fighting over screens against him. And I'm sitting there going like, what is this about? Like, this is not optimizing every defensive possession. This is not, trying to go and tailor your defense towards the players you're playing. They're basically doing the same thing. There's some switching they're mixing in quite a bit. I think the Celtics game, that's a team where if you're fighting over screens all the time, if you're falling behind the play at all, like they're passing, they're 3-point shooting, spamming, like it's just difficult to keep in rotation. And so switching is often the best move with them to just try to keep everything true and keep guys in front of you and all of that. But for the most part, they are sticking with this really aggressive fight over the screens at all costs defense. And I think that is very much a symptom of what we've heard the Raptors talk about all season, which is this is a rebuilding year. We're trying to lay foundation. We're trying to instill habits. And they're not at the point right now where they need to be worrying about possession by possession fiddling with the coverages. They are just trying to school their team into playing the defense that they want to play at sort of a core base level. And you're seeing it start to come around a little bit with the improvements we've seen incrementally over the course of the season, right? Talking about this a little bit with like Blake Murphy, sitting up and watching the game on Friday, and just, the idea of, they're not really trying to, snuff out every single possession with the optimal coverage. They are just trying to get the guys playing the defense they want. It's very similar to what we saw with the offense last year, right? Where even through the struggle, even as things weren't going well, they were still running the offense the way it's intended to be run. And as the season progressed, things opened up a little bit, even in that portion of the season at the start of the year, where you had Dennis Schroeder dragging things down and the offense was a nightmare to start the season. There were slow steps forward before all the trades happened, where the offense was figuring it out and kind of finding a rhythm. I think you're seeing that same thing with the defense. And this is the Darko Rajakovic thing, it seems, right? Where, hey, we're focusing on this thing. We're going to school it. We're going to drill it. We're going to instill it deeply within the fabric of your being. And then you're going to go and execute it. And you're going to get better at it over time, because reps make good. And so, I think that's the way I'm reading into the defense right now. They are just like not worried about the micro possessions and the little tiny advantages you can gain by switching up the coverage here and there. They're just trying to school the main sort of core defense before layering in other stuff. And for a team as bad at defense as the team was last year, I think that's a great way to go about it. Start small, start with the baseline stuff, and then build from there. And I think that's what we're seeing right now with the numbers on the rise. It's nice to see. And one last guy who's been impressive to me, Ochai Agbaji, I thought in that game against Boston was fantastic defensively. Yeah, a couple times getting beat off the bounce by Jason Tatum. That's going to happen. But I think for the most part, he's been really good, A, on the ball, but B, I think he's been a really excellent rotational defender. He's very often the guy rotating over to help at the rim when Jakob Poeltl has someone bearing down on him. That's huge. Like, he's not huge, but he's there positionally. He's in the spots. He's there. He's doing verticality and all of that. And I think also, in pick and roll defense, he's often the guy who's kind of bumping over to the middle when Jakob Poeltl's tracking out on the perimeter and you're running pick and roll defense. Very often the guy helping at the nail and sliding over from the wing is Ochai Agbaji. He's doing a damn good job of it. And then he's also rotating from there out. There was a possession, I want to say it was in overtime, might have been late in the fourth quarter against the Celtics, where that exact thing happened. Jakob Poeltl gets tracked out to the perimeter, switched on to Jason Tatum. Tatum throws a pass to the roller, and Ochai Agbaji slides right over, obstructs the view, gets in the way. There's a kick to the corner, and then Ochai scrambles over, contests the Sam Hauser three into a miss. Like, he's covering a lot of ground. He's doing a lot for this team. I've been really impressed. He's a smart defender. I've been very happy with what we've seen from Ochai. The reputation that he came into the Raptors' tenure with is now starting to actually play out on the floor, which is great. So, yeah, the defense, it's on the way. It's not perfect. Again, they're not going to be a top half defense, but it's on the way to being not an embarrassment. And if they can get their guys back and have the functional, close to top 10 level offense I think they're capable of having, that's a pretty good recipe to start working with. So, yeah, defense, we love it. We'll come back on the other side, get into the good, the bad, and the to round out today's show. Thing I liked, thing I didn't like, thing that's got me a wee bit intrigued. RJ Barrett, pick and roll wizard. We'll get into that coming up in just a sec. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win that $5 bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. If you're watching a game, you get a little hunch and you want to say, I want to throw some money down on this drive being a touchdown, or this team getting an interception here, or whatever it might be. You can go and check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you go and place your bets. It's that simple. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. It's not just the NFL. If you want to go throw some money on the NBA Cup, or you want to throw some money down on, which baseball free agent is going to sign with whom, Juan Soto, Blue Jays. Yeah, let's definitely get excited about that possibility again. This is not going to end horribly for all of us. Either way, go to FanDuel.com and have yourself some fun. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and the Locked On Podcast Network. Wrapping things up here with your Monday edition of the good, the bad, and the way we round out every episode of this here podcast on the heels of a Toronto Raptors basketball game, or Toronto Raptors basketball games in the case of a weekend where they play two, such as this one. Thing I liked, thing I didn't like, the thing that's got me a little bit intrigued about what we're seeing from the Toronto Raptors of late. The good from over the 2 games, it's the RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl pick and roll duo. Totally devastating. Those 2 guys working in concert with one another. And it's not your typical, pull up guard with downhill juice and marauding, rolling big man flying in for lobs. Like, it's not that. It's a more sort of, let's say, enlightened version of pick and roll offense. It's very crafty. It's very, I think, sort of offbeat a little bit. RJ Barrett's been really good as a pick and roll creator. And again, I think this is the thing from his experience as the number 1 guy that I'm feeling most confident is like real and can carry over. And the implications of RJ Barrett being a good pick and roll creator are pretty huge for a team that just needs creation beyond Scottie Barnes and Immanuel Quickley. And if you can run lineups where RJ Barrett is able to keep second units afloat without having to constantly stagger Barnes and Quickley, that is a lot of great benefits. You don't have to be so militant about your rotations. You can have Scottie and Quickley play together more and run bench lineups with those 2 guys as your basis. That's really exciting to me. There's just like a lot of good stuff that comes out of RJ Barrett being able to keep lineups afloat on offense. And man, oh man, did he ever keep the Raptors afloat on Saturday. Of course, we know by now 15 assists in his first career triple-double, 25, 10, and 15. And over the course of the weekend, 22 assists to 2 turnovers. That's ridiculous considering the lack of space he's operating within, considering how difficult the ask is of him right now to go 22 to 2 turnovers. Like, it's pretty wild. It's really impressive stuff. And that's why I think once you get Quickley and Barnes back, the ways you can layer in possessions of RJ Barrett pick and roll around those guys, it diversifies your attack. It makes things more interesting, and it makes you a whole lot more difficult to guard. And so this is great. A stat from our pal S. Baraheny after the game against the Celtics. So this is as of Sunday afternoon. It's not taking into account last night's games, but still. RJ Barrett, 17th in pick and roll possessions as a ball handler, including passes. This is the number that's not available at NBA.com. This is a synergy number. Thank you, S, for sharing it. He's number 1 in points per possession among the top 20 generating 1.21 points per possession. That's incredible. This is his scoring plus his passing, and the passing is lifting up. Just as a scorer, he's 0.91 points per possession, which is just above the 50th percentile, slightly in the top half. Not bad. You'll take it. But when you factor in the passing, when you factor in just laydowns to Jakob Poeltl for easy buckets, which is most of what's happening when RJ Barrett's running pick and roll, he's been devastating. Jakob Poeltl himself is in the top 5 in pick and roll possessions as a roll man. Only Anthony Davis scores more points per possession than him. These 2 guys working together is a huge functional backbone for this team right now. And there's not a whole lot else going on around it, especially if Gradey Dick is exhausted and not hitting his shots. But those 2 guys give you a shot, and it's only going to mean good things once they get their guys back. And you can kind of, again, limit the burden on Barrett, create more space for him to do the thing where he flies around, curls, and gets to the rim and scores. Like, his shots at the rim are so contested right now. Everyone's collapsing on him. You get your other guys back. You get more space breathed into the mix when Quickley's available, when Kelly is available. And all of a sudden, those driving lanes are going to be there again for Barrett. There's a bridge between the player we saw last season from RJ, this off-ball maestro, and this pick and roll guy who's incredible. You can blend those guys together, and that is a really interesting third guy to have for this Raptors offense. Maybe you even consider him the second guy. I would still qualify Quickley as the number 2, just because I think the pull-up shooting and the pick and roll craft with him it's no slouch. It's very good. And so that's kind of how I do the hierarchy. But RJ Barrett being able to carry offense, super valuable, super important. He's the good in concert with Jakob Poeltl in that pick and roll, which just cooked the Celtics. Pretty fun stuff. The bad, did not think I'd be saying this at any point, but Bruno Fernando getting hurt. It's bad right now. They need just a large man. This team is dying for large men. And Bruno Fernando is nothing if not a large basketball man who can blow stuff up at the rim. He grabs rebounds for you. Offensively, yeah, you're not going to miss a whole lot except for the odd hilariously thunderous dunk or attempt at a hilariously thunderous dunk. But It's going to put a lot now on Jonathan Mobo. If Bruno's going to miss time, that ankle sprain, yes, he came back and finished the game. Credit to him. That was great. But, we'll see how long he's out with the ankle thing now. The next morning, it's always when you kind of feel that the most. And so hopefully it's not too long, considering he was able to play on it. Like, he was able to put weight. That's seemingly encouraging, but we'll see. But not having his size is going to be tricky. It's going to put a lot on Mobo to hold up as the backup 5. And look, he's looked a little bit better. I thought his last couple of games, he looked pretty stout defensively. Still would love to see him look at the rim a little bit more often. I feel like there is interior scoring touch that he's not quite tapping into right now. But I thought, a couple of possessions, he totally ate up Cade Cunningham. His size, his rotation defense is really nice. There's a lot going to be put on Mobo's plate. Not that there already hasn't been for a second-round rookie, but without Fernando, he is the clear backup center. And best of luck, man. It's throwing him to the wolves once again. Let's get to the to close things out. And this is kind of a bigger picture thing. And maybe this is wishful thinking as someone who detests the creatively bankrupt Boston Celtics play style, which really is just this sort of machine of, we don't care about style points. We don't care about individuality. Our whole thing is we drive, we kick, we three. We drive, we kick, we three. If we can't drive, we just take a three. This is Celtics miserable basketball. There's this whole sort of thing going on, this discourse about, the NBA product is terrible because of threes. I don't actually think that's true. I just think it's true when the Boston Celtics are playing, because they play this very just hideous style of basketball that has completely sold out their soul in the interest of racking up a bunch of threes taken. Again, they took 61 threes in the game against the Raptors. They hit 21. The Raptors took 23 threes in total in this game. And so how did the Raptors keep up? How did they have this one in the balance until the buzzer went? And I think it is maybe an inkling of what actual contenders with enough talent to go and actually go toe-to-toe with the Celtics night to night should be looking at copying. The only way that you can beat the math of a lot of threes is to take the only more mathematically beneficial shot in the world, which is shots at the rim. The Raptors killed Boston at the rim in this game. And they, there's short mid-range too, which is, for Jakob Poeltl, an extension of a rim shot is an 8-foot push shot, even though it doesn't get classified as one. That's a rim shot for him. It's that high percentage, right? And so the Raptors, yes, they got a really cold night, I guess, from the Celtics overall by their standards. I mean, what did the Celtics end up shooting in this game? They shot 34% from deep. That's not unseasonably cold that it's shocking. Teams shoot 34-35% all the time. That's the variance game the Celtics play. They just get up enough threes to account for the variance. But the reason the Raptors are able to keep close is because styles make fights, and the style the Raptors play is specifically designed to get enough shots up at the rim to counteract the math advantage that is taking a whole crap load of threes spam. It's something other teams that have more talent and finishing talent on the rim should be looking at trying to copy, because look, no one is going to beat the Celtics at their game. They are the best at being ruthless and ghoulish and soulless three-point jackers, right? This is what they do. They have a lot of guys who can shoot, and they have completely just thrown out any shred of watchability in the interest of getting as many threes up for the math of it all. They're the only team in the league that takes more than half their shots from three. They're 7 percentage points higher than the number 2 3-point frequency team. No one is going to, it's like wanting to play small ball with the Golden State Warriors. No one was going to beat the Warriors playing small ball. They were too good at it. You had to find other ways. You had to play big. You had to play 2 big lineups like Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol. Yes, there wasn't the full Warriors, obviously, but still, you were not going to beat them playing small ball and trying to do it their way. The Rockets got close once, but they didn't do it. And this is the thing with the Celtics, right? You can try to go to do the 3-point thing. They're just going to do it better than you because they have better shooters than you. It's just the way it goes. And so if you're going to beat the Celtics, it's probably by spamming twos at the rim and taking advantage of the thing they've not been very good at, especially with no Kristaps Porzingis. When he's in, obviously, he's a much better rim protector, but there are certain bigs who can bully him. Even Jakob Poeltl has had his way physically with Kristaps Porzingis before. He's obviously better than Neemias Queta and Luke Cornett and all that, but overall, the Celtics' bugaboo right now is they get bludgeoned at the rim, and they don't take enough shots at the rim themselves. And so when their 3-point variance works against them. They're the number one team in threes taken as a percentage of their shots. That's great. But if they're not falling, they didn't have any like 2-point sort of floor or cushion to fall back on, especially against the Raptors. They took 14% of their shots at the rim in that game. That's a first percentile rim frequency in any game played this season per cleaning the glass. They just don't get to the rim, even though they seemingly have the talent to do so. A team that can go and bludgeon them at the rim. This is why I like the Nuggets in the matchup against Boston, like this year, last year, whenever. It's because they are a team that lives at the rim. They're the number one team in rim frequency, and they have like the best big in the world, the best player in the world, who can go and push back against the math of the three with the more favorable math of just hitting a bunch of twos in close. It still is the most mathematically favorable shot in basketball. And I wonder if the Raptors, who spammed shots at the rim, didn't take any threes. They took 23 threes, which is hilarious in 2024. That's like a 2008 number. I do wonder if that is maybe the blueprint that better teams with better talent can start to copy to try to take down the Celtics, because you're not going to beat them at their own game. It's just not going to happen. So that's the grander visions of ending the Boston Celtics in their dreary, dreary reign as the league's champions. It's going to happen at the rim. It's not going to happen from downtown. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out. We'll be back again on Tuesday to talk about Raptors Pacers, probably recording that one right after the game on Monday, actually. So we'll have an early podcast for you in the feeds on YouTube. So you have that to look forward to Tuesday. Discord, link in the description of the podcast, free to join right next to that newsletter link. And thank you in advance for subscribing, following, rating, reviewing, telling a friend, etc., etc. You're all the best. Thank you so much. Enjoy Raptors Pacers tonight. We'll talk to you Tuesday. Thanks for hanging. Bye. Ooh, it's again.